Hello, and welcome to On Good Faith, the program sponsored by the Cape Cod Council of Churches. I am Jonathan Onquist, the pastor of First Lutheran Church in West Barnstable, one of the members of the Cape Cod Council of Churches, and it is my pleasure, and has been, to serve as host for On Good Faith. We try to bring to you persons, events, ideas, happenings on the Cape that affect us who live here and beyond. Besides being a member of the Cape Cod Council of Churches, I'm also a member of the Cape Cod Justice for Youth Collaborative. And our effort, I'd like to explain to you what the collaborative does. Our guest today is the present chairman of that collaborative. The collaborative was started under the leadership of retired Judge Joe Reardon, and its vision is this. The vision of the Cape Cod Justice for Youth Collaborative is a coordinated, compassionate, community-involved system of justice for youth and their families that is accessible to all without regard to economic, cultural, linguistic, social, or other factors. That's the vision. And now, the mission. The mission is to advocate for effective solutions for supportive systemic change in the judicial justice system by amplifying youth voices and educating the community. Quite a task. Any task like that is one that necessitates rest to be able to carry out some of those tough initiatives. And rest is importantly mentioned oftentimes in Holy Scripture. In the book of Matthew, Jesus says this, "Come to me, all you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Rest. Sleep. In the Christian Century, November 26, 2014, this year, Benjamin de Home wrote this article entitled "The War Against Rest." I'll read part of it. Maria Fernandez died for the sake of a nap. The 32-year-old, 3 part-time jobs, and between shifts to 2 different Dunkin' Donuts, she stopped at a parking lot in Elizabeth, New Jersey, to sleep in her car. Fumes from a spilled fuel container that had tipped over, she worried about running out of gas, and exhaust from her vehicle ended her life on August 25th. Fernandez was part of what economist Joe Seneca calls, quote, "the real face of the recession," end quote. 7.5 million American workers cobbling together a living from part-time jobs. While the shortage of full-time jobs at adequate wages for a familiar story in America's lingering downturn, the cruel shortage of sleep is not. There's an article in the Pacific Standard by Ryan Jacob entitled "Are Sundays Dying?" Citing a Canadian survey, he found that in the last several years of responses, religious observances, socializing, eating at home, and yes, sleep had all declined significantly on Sundays between 1981 and 2005. During the same time period, working increased dramatically. We need sleep. We need rest. That article continued, "Churches have, in a manner of speaking, taken notice. Late rising and the newspaper once were the frequently cited competitors to Sunday worship. They have been replaced by youth sports activities. But sports are not the only story. Resting is leaking out of the world through work." That woman, Maria Fernandez, died after a Sunday night graveyard shift. Sleep. Rest. We need it. And the Cape Cod Justice for Youth Collaborative, headed now by our guest, Dr. Peter Edwards. Dr. Edwards, rest, need of sleep, and the work that you are heading now, the Cape Cod Justice for Youth, how do they all come together and what your focus is for our collaborative?
Jonathan, you're absolutely correct in what you've said, that sleep is important. It's important for all of us. and for all adults in America. In fact, we could probably cut our healthcare costs down by a significant percentage if we all got enough sleep. So many injuries, so many, particularly automobile accidents, occur due to sleepiness. 150,000 or 100,000 plus automobile accidents yearly. But more specifically and more pointedly to our discussion today is the need for sleep in our children and our youth. And that's a particular need that has only been discovered maybe in the last 20 years. But it's always been known that the younger we are, the more sleep we need. But then as our communities grew, as our schools developed, they seem to not pay attention to the sleep need of the youth, and for the convenience of the bus driver schedule, the busy bus schedule, to keep it affordable. They had multiple tier busing to use one bus 3 times. Some kids had to get up very early in the morning. And now we realize that this is really a problem because the adolescent is not getting sleep. And you may say, well, why not go to bed earlier? Well, you and I can do that. If you and I change our occupation and have to get up earlier, we can go to bed earlier. And in a few months, we'll be getting up on time, right, without a need of an alarm clock for that new schedule. But the adolescent has a biological difference than you or I.
When we say adolescent, Peter, what are we talking about?
We'll talk about teenager. We'll
Teenager.
say 13. 12 is not a teen, so let's say 13. But like in nature, not everything happens just at 13. But let's say 14. By 14, almost all will have had this biological change, which is really configured to the neuroscience, to the brain. When I went to medical school, we learned that the brain grew until you were about 6 years of age, and then it stopped, and that was it. It was a finite process thereafter. But in the era of modern medicine, we've got new techniques, particularly imaging techniques, and I have elegant slides that show the changing brain. And at age 14, we found through this imaging techniques that the brain changed. And it started a big change, a big developing change. Not a recrudescence of growth, but actually a shrinking, perhaps, of the brain. Along with that came hormonal changes. Bottom line is, an adolescent is not able to go to sleep until about 11 o'clock in the evening.
You mean the body for this adolescent, this child, normally cannot go to sleep because of how the brain functions on that age.
Right, and it's really, the body is following the brain. Our brain is everything. And our brain does not, the brain of an adolescent does not fall asleep until about 11 o'clock. I've seen some studies with brain waves studies showing the adolescent's brain at 9 o'clock at night being sent to bed, but it's the wake brain wave. It's not until 11 that the brain goes to sleep. And I've seen another study, well, let's check it at 7 in the morning when he's driving to school and the brain wave is on and he's in the sleep mode.
Sleep mode.
In fact, his melatonin, and it's this hormone melatonin that is not released until 11 o'clock at night. It's before that, before this teenager was a teenager, he was a preteen, he could go to sleep at 6 in the evening or 7 because the melatonin was more flexible. But it becomes very fixed at this time, and then it continues until 7 in the morning. And so he's asleep, yet he has to get up at 6, 5. Classes start at 7:30.
And so physically, I mean biologically, it is not appropriate.
Right. And so what's happening is the child is not getting enough sleep, and in time, this results in a deficit. And we call a deficit eventually a deprivation, so sleep deprivation, which is a form of torture. And it really has a strong biological impact on the life of these children. It increases medical issues like diabetes, obesity, decreases self-esteem. When you have lower self-esteem due to this slow, unremitting torture, and you can't make it up on the weekends. You just can't make up 10 extra hours of sleep. It doesn't work. That's actually worse to do that. The studies have shown. Everything about this has been studied. hundreds and hundreds of studies.
But what can change? What needs to change for that? I mean,
what needs to change is simple. The child needs to be allowed to sleep and get 9 hours of sleep.
The adolescent needs
the
to
adolescent youth or child, and that's what they need. They need 8.5 to 9.5 hours of sleep. When they get that, it's a whole new ball game. These bad things that were happening don't happen. The low self-esteem is terrible. It results in low impulse control. Just think about that. Unwanted pregnancies, unwanted drug use. Once you find drug as an adolescent or alcohol, you no longer want to confront, the adolescent development stops. They'll prefer, it's easy to choose that way out. Oh no, I don't want to talk in front of class. I'm afraid of that. I can use alcohol or whatever. And that's how we find things like that starting. Backing up a bit, if we want to go to the introduction of me.
Yep.
Again, my name is Dr. Peter Edwards, and I'm chairman of the Cape Cod Justice for Youth Collaborative. And I've had a rapid ascent to this position.
Yes.
But I came to Cape Cod Justice for Youth Collaborative with the purpose of identifying initiatives or projects that were science-based that could solve the problem of the county, of the community. And the problem is rising drug abuse, rising alcohol abuse, rising crime, rising delinquency, and rising admission to jail, not to college.
Right.
I think Barnstable County has built a fantastic not a new college, a new jail. And it's expanding as we speak, I understand. That's a sign of failure in a community. So I term this, what I do is community medicine.
Yeah.
And community medicine is taking a look at the community as if it's an individual. I practice medicine. I'm a diagnostician. Diagnosis is key in medicine. You must make the correct diagnosis before you engage in treatment. So when asked by Judge Joe Reardon what the diagnosis is, I simply looked at the tools I had to use. And the tools I have to use in community medicine are few, not that many, but they are pretty universal, whether it's of the county, the state, or the nation. The main tool we have is our schools. Second we have is our criminal justice system. And that was Joe Reardon's bias, criminal justice, being a retired judge. And his reason for starting this organization was to try to stop the recycling. Someone would come to jail, they go out, they get back into jail. He said, what's going on here? And I said to Joe, we have to stop the faucet that's turning, stop at the source. And let's look at our other tools at our schools, and what can we do better in our schools. And the schools can do a lot. One thing they can do is, for adolescents, is delay the start of class and allow them to get 9 hours sleep. This has been done in perhaps 1,000 school districts nationwide. All are better, all have better balance sheets. They all thought, oh, it would be costly. It's not. I mean, maybe the happier students just use fewer pencils and toilet paper, but the teachers are happier, the schools are happier. Attendance is miraculous, and the academic performance is improved.
And I heard you also said, I have heard that even we talk about athletics. Your athletics is always in the afternoon or after school, and that has adjusted too. There's better performance on the field because the people have slept.
I was very surprised to see this, so to speak. No, I'm not surprised to see that the athletics are better. That there are 70% reduction in injuries. Now, what's more,
because they've had a rest.
To me, that's criminal. That's malpractice in medicine. To have our children get injuries that usually can last a lifetime, aside from the concussion injuries. But there's a reduction in athletic injuries, and there's a better record. And probably it takes less time for the team to learn what it has to do. Have you ever watched a football team practice? They stand around.
That's right.
10 guys do something and the rest stand around. I don't know if they're, but anyway, to me that's silly. but maybe that's another topic.
We're not going to adjust that today. Okay.
No, we're not. I have my ideas about that, and
Okay.
I think students should own the athletic programs in high schools. It should be their thing. It shouldn't be for the parents. It should be for the students entirely, and they would get a meaningful experience that way. So, but what I said was it only takes them maybe less time. I don't know if that's the reason. Less time to learn the plays or whatever they have to do because they're better rested. That is also true in school. There have schools that are, when allowed to, they can shorten the school time. They get just as much done. They have they take half-hour classes instead of hour, and the students get just as much done, do just as well when they're well rested.
When they're well
So,
rested.
and that goes on to the complete reform, which is to have schools start later, have there only be a minimum, no more than 4 hours of didactic lessons a day. No human being can do that, but I think we have other outside forces requiring them to do more stuff. European schools, I think England, 10 or 11 o'clock. Finland, the best students in the world come from, I think, Finland or Denmark. They start at 11, and they limit the
So
amount
scientifically, medically, this is proven stuff you're telling me.
This is absolutely proven stuff. And again, I didn't back up to the beginning. I said, the United States schools, our school students perform at the bottom of the 25 industrialized nations. We were at the top. So that is an illness. And again, back to community medicine. A community can die, just like you or I can die, with a disease or with the disease and the wrong treatment. So especially the wrong treatment.
What is the disease here?
Well, the disease here is that it's a system problem. It's a system problem. Having students go to school too early. That's a real simple one. There are other aspects of our community schools that could be changed. For instance, we all have these concept of middle schools. It's been shown that that's not good. You should have K through 8, and then 9 through 12, and what the projected benefit is a much better education, much better end product. The end product is a healthy graduated student, gainfully employed. And the Brookings Institute and Hamilton Project coincide with my work to show that when you delay school start, that intervention alone adds about $17,000 to $18,000 lifetime value to that student. But just think about that. Every student adding that much lifetime value and what that does to the community.
Yeah.
And when you go from K to 8 and 9 to 12, it's not, that's a 10 to 1 benefit. This is a 40 to 1. It's even that much more. And then when they changed, the Hamilton Project also said, have teachers teach what they teach best. Now, that can't be quantified into economic value, but that also improves our schools. So our schools are our best intervention, our best tool to make a community well.
Would be to start school at a later time for
and this is
adolescents.
This is just one start, one initiative, one thing that can help our community. I think
some of the things you provided for me that I thought was so interesting about the delay school start for the adolescents, abundant positive evidence, both medically and academic. The American Academy of Pediatrics, it's a public health issue and a very important one. The Brookings Institute, like you said, $17,500 lifetime economic benefit if you start school at an appropriate time. And 50% reduction in auto crashes, 70% reduction in athletic injury if you start with a rest.
And this has been studied well. There's the automobile crashes or accident information is sound. It's been done 3 times, I believe, in comparing one county to another, and there's about a 25% to 50% difference in the rested, the sleep, the county, the adolescents, just the adolescents alone. Now, if all the adults, what was her name, Maria, if it was allowed to get sleep, we'd have much.
Be alive.
Guess what would happen to your automobile insurance? I think it would go down. So this should be enough to do that as well. So this would help everybody, but there's just so much benefit from this one simple public health issue. The American Academy of Pediatrics earlier this fall called it a public health issue with a simple and smart fix. And which is delay the start of school. And it's not hard, it's simple, and it's not costly. Nowhere has it been proven to cost more. Everybody says, oh, it's going to cost millions. I remember when I first presented to a school board here on the Cape, one of the school board members, oh, we looked at this, it cost $4 million. What is he talking about? Nauset has done it. It costs nothing. When you think about it, it shouldn't cost anything because it's the same stuff that's going on. But there's some confusion in the first year, and there may be some costs due to that. But other than that, the costs go away, and then they go down because the school works so much better. When you're in an environment where everybody's happy, guess what? Costs go down. You know, for our healthcare system today, unhappy doctors, you're going to have costs go up because they're going to order more tests or whatever. So,
but it's so good to hear good to hear you say those positive things that can develop. But you always have the argument I've heard in conversation with other people about this possible change was, what about athletics? I know the positive, and not the injuries, and also probably a better win-loss record, but it's a big change. I mean, how do we do that? Well, they've done it in Nauset, I know. They've done it in Falmouth too, I think?
No, Falmouth is in discussion. Nauset has done it, has delayed school start to 8:30. I would really like to see this go to a little later, like 9 o'clock for the adolescent student, and it can be done, and they will evolve. But in terms of all these particular things, every school district that has done this, and there are about 1,000
that have done it,
that have delayed. I mean, some states, maybe Virginia is 80%. The whole, of the 80 school districts, 70 have done it. Wow. A high percentage. But everywhere, whether it's Denver, Colorado, big cities have different issues. They can tap into public transportation, give vouchers to these kids. There's just every way to do it. Every way where it's been done, it's done a little differently. There are many ways you can manage things to get that extracurricular activity, that athletics and so forth. Again, someday I'd like to see the students run it. And if students ran things, guess what? They'll run better. Students will solve these problems, and it'll just be much more fun for them.
What about you? You mentioned before to me that Hamilton project. Can you explain that a little bit more to our audience?
Well, the Hamilton project is named after Alexander Hamilton. And it's he was the first Secretary of Treasury, but he's all about efficiency and to create what's called the most efficient model. But this was a think tank of people, of the greatest minds of economists and people that that are around the country. And the
today.
Yeah, the project concluded about 2 or 3 years ago, and the strategy calls for combining public investment, a secure social safety net, and fiscal discipline. In that framework, the project puts forward innovative proposals from leading economic thinkers based on credible evidence and experience, not ideology or doctrine, to introduce new and effective policy options into the national debate, all in the purpose of advancing America's promise of opportunity, prosperity, and growth. It's a big economics thing. And what I say here is that all of this goes to help our economics when we have a better student base. And so when we're talking about health care or something like that, I said we endorse the concept that it takes a healthy community to raise a child, and it also takes a healthy community to build a strong and enduring economy. A strong economy is the best defense against disease and disability.
Say that again. A strong economy is the best
defense against disease and disability. Disability is more than disease. Right. It's mental illness and so forth. The amount of mental illness associated with sleep deprivation is profound. I mean, the list of issues that I talked about, it's not a small matter. But when you reverse it, when you allow these kids to sleep more, the economy of the school improves, and then it just filters out into the community. It takes a few more years to see some of the greater benefits to accrue.
I think one of the things I thought was interesting when I heard, just thinking about this, young kids that we send to school later than the old kids, than the adolescent, are the ones that get up at 5 in the morning, and their brains are set to do that, and then we get them up later or send them to school later. It's just the opposite.
It is, and young kids can go to school early, can learn more than they're given credit for. They should be learning a second language when they're 7. That helps them learn mathematics. That helps them learn everything, science and history. And then they move on, and they can learn everything that high school teaches them by the time they're 14, by the time this brain change takes place. Yeah. Then we can have a whole new educational strategy at that time. That'd be my vision of the future. But yes, you know, I guess the concern is that the young kid would be in the dark early in the morning, but we can fix that. Let's have a, you know, what's wrong with having a patrolman, you know, make sure that, you know, but the cost of that is nothing compared to the benefit to the community. Right. When this happens, the economic benefit is profound when we do more, and we're wallowing in this low. We are the 25th. We rank bottom, and we can't continue this and be successful as a
And the fault is not poor schools. The fault is kids that don't get enough sleep.
Right. Right, and we fell into this trap because it was for cost effectiveness. We didn't know that this was harmful to the kid, but it's actually harmful to their health. Yeah. In my business, it's called malpractice, what's being done to them. But that, I was going to say something, but
well, go ahead.
Well, I lost my train of thought briefly for a second.
But thank you, Peter, for our time together. It's just exciting. And I know that from the responses that we will receive from people that have seen our program today, a lot of questions will come to people's minds, and there are answers to all these questions. There is hope that we as a community can provide a future that will be one filled with promise for whatever the age is. And I think, thank you, Peter and the Cape Cod Justice for Youth Collaborative for their work and bringing to all of our minds the need for change. Right. Change is a constant, and that change can be very positive economically, socially, athletically, educationally, positive. That's what we need. And I want to thank you for joining us today for our On Good Faith program, and I hope to see you again. We always bring you what we think is the best, and we think we did today. God's peace to you. Bye-bye.